Hello everyone, and welcome back to MIS 5000 Special Topics in MIS, Python Programming. In today's module, we're going to introduce some methods that can be used for string manipulation. After this module, you should be able to use escape characters in Python, isolate characters in a string using index values in Python, isolate characters in a string using slices in Python, use the upper, lower, isUpper, and isLower methods in Python, remove whitespace in strings in Python, remove characters in strings in Python, and use the join and split methods in Python. So what is a string? This should be a review at this point, but a string literal begins and ends with single quotes or double quotes. We can store string literals in string variables. So for example, this is a string literal, is enclosed in single quotes, and is a string literal. The string variable s contains the string literal cat. We have discussed escape characters in a previous module. As a reminder, an escape character lets you use characters that are otherwise impossible to put into a string. An escape character consists of a backslash followed by the character that you want to add to the string. For example, say hi to Bob's mother is enclosed in single quotes. When we want to include the single quote in Bob's as possessive, we have to use the escape character slash and then the quote so that it is recognized as a quote as a string literal and not the beginning of another string. Here are several escape characters that can be used in Python. You have the single quote, double quote, the tab character, the new line character or line break, and the backslash. Each of these can be created with the use of a backslash and the following character. Let's take a look at this example. So we want to be able to write one print statement that produces the following output. We have the following. So roses are red, violets are blue. We have a new line, unexpected curly brace on line 32. Let's head over to Visual Studio Code and see if we can reproduce this. So we're going to want our print output to look exactly like the example. We're going to need to use escape characters to do this. And the goal here is to be able to use one print statement to produce the output. So let's see what we can come up with. So we have our print statement. Within it, we'll start our string. We'll begin with the line roses are red and a comma. We now have to begin a new line, so we'll need to use that new line escape character, which is a backslash and an N. We can then move on to violets are blue. Notice that I'm not adding an additional space because that would include the space in the string, and we don't want that. We'll add two additional new lines, one to move to the next and one to move to the following line. Unexpected space, then we have a curly brace in single quotes. So to produce that, we're going to use the single quote escape character, a curly brace, another single quote escape character, followed by a new line, followed by on line 32 and a period. Let's go ahead and save and run this and see what we get. So as you can see, we have the output that matches. So roses are red, comma, new line, violets are blue, two new lines, unexpected, in quotes, a curly brace, on line 32. We've mentioned this idea before, but similar to a list, strings have indices for all of their characters. So strings use indexes the same way that lists do. You can think of the string hello world in single quotes as a list, and each character in the string as an item with a corresponding index. So here you can see the string hello world and the index for each character in that string. So you'll notice that there is a space between hello and world, and that character has the index of 5. Similar to lists, the first character is identified by the index of 0 rather than 1. So just be aware of that when you are manipulating strings. If we were to take the length of this string, we would get a length of 12. As a reminder that that last character has an index of 11 instead of 12. We can also take a slice of a string. So we can take slices of lists as well using square brackets. A slice is a substring of a string, so in other words, a smaller piece of that string. For example, if we take the string spam, which reads hello world with an exclamation point, in order to take different slices of this, we would just use the string variable name, so in this case spam, and then after it include square brackets with an indication of which slice we would like to take. So spam 0 to 5 would give us characters 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we would see HELLO, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The next example would give us the same result. So without including the 0, we would get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The last example would give us starting with index of 6. So that would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gives us the capital W. And since there's no end, it would simply run to the end of the string. So we would get world with an exclamation point after it as our printed slice. There are two methods that can be used to produce a new string where the old string is either in all uppercase or all lowercase letters. This can be useful for string validation if a user accidentally uses the wrong case, or if we want to be able to count a certain occurrence of a letter and don't want to represent both letters, but would rather use a method to do so. So the upper and lower string methods return a new string where all of the letters in the original string have been converted to uppercase or lowercase respectively. Note that these do not change the original string, but return new string values. So again, if we have our string spam, which is hello world, if we print spam.upper, we would get the result of hello world in all caps. If we print spam.lower, we would get the result hello world in all lowercase letters. Two related methods are the isUpper and isLower string methods. These return a Boolean value of true if the string has at least one letter and all of the letters are uppercase or lowercase respectively. Otherwise, the method returns false. So in the case of spam being again hello world but all lowercase, if we were to print spam is upper, it's interesting because we do have a character that is in fact not a letter. So give it some thought and then I'll test it so that you can see, would this produce true or false? So here we have our string spam, which is hello world in lowercase with an exclamation point. Let's go ahead and use our method, so spam.isUpper, and print the result. Notice that because it is a method, it will be followed by parentheses. It does not take any arguments. I go ahead and run this and I see that it is false. That's what we expect because it is in lowercase. Let's go ahead and change this to isLower and see the result. In this case, it does not count the exclamation point, so this turns out to be true. One more example, if we were to print the string 1, 2, 3 isLower, think about whether or not that would be true or false. If we run it, we see that that is in fact false. So I guess the question is 1, 2, 3 counted as upper? Let's go ahead and check. Run that and we also get false. So these numeric characters are neither upper nor lowercase. So keep that in mind when you are using those methods. The strip method is useful for removing whitespace. In Python, this is especially useful if you have a lot of text that you want to manipulate. Say you've taken a bunch of HTML and CSS from a web page and you want to reduce it down to either characters or identify addresses within that. The strip method can be used to get rid of additional whitespace that you do not need. So this includes the space, tab, and new line character from the left, right, or both sides of a string. The strip string method will return a new string without any whitespace characters at the beginning or the end. So in this example, we have hello world with a bunch of spaces to the left and spaces to the right. If we were to print spam.strip, you would only get hello world without the additional spaces. There are also the lstrip and rstrip methods, which will remove whitespace characters from the left and right ends of a string respectively. So in the same case, if we were to print spam.lstrip, we would get this part of the string where the whitespace to the left is removed. And in the second case, with rstrip, we would get this string with the right whitespace removed. The strip method can also be passed a string argument that will tell it to strip occurrences of the characters passed in no particular order. However, be aware that these will be stripped either from the front or the back of the string, unless an R or an L is included in that string. So in the first example, print spam.strip with a space in the H. Because this pattern of string occurs at the front of spam, it will remove that, so you'll end up with LOLO world. In the second case, spam.rstrip with an exclamation point will remove that exclamation point from the string. Let's go ahead and test that. So we have a similar string with some additional spaces. we have print spam.strip space and h, and we end up with LOLO world. You can see it removed all the spaces at the beginning, as well as that first H, but it included the spaces at the end. We can test the second case, so print spam.rstrip and the exclamation point. Now you can see that actually the string didn't change. This is because there is no space after the exclamation point. This is because there is no space at the end, so there's no actual match at the end of this string. If we were to add a space, you would see that we actually do get the removal of those spaces and that exclamation point. So just be aware of that as you're working with these methods. The join method is useful when you have a list of strings that need to be joined together into a single string value. The join method is called on a string, gets past a list of strings, and returns a string. So you can see the following examples. We have s equals a comma with a space, dot join cats, rats, and bats. So what this will do is it will join these three strings inside of the list, cats, rats, and bats, with the comma and the space. Let's go ahead and test these in Visual Studio Code. So we have s equals, we are starting with the string of a comma and space. We're going to call the join method on that string and join together the following strings. So cats, rats, and bats. Let's go ahead and print s so that we can see the result. And as you can see, we get cats, rats, and bats separated in the middle with the comma and the space. Let's go ahead and test the next example. So t is equal to, we want to join these together using a space character. So we'll call on the space join the following strings. So my name is Simon. If we print the result, you can see we get my name is Simon separated by spaces. Finally, our last example, u equals ABC. And then we're using actually the same set of strings to join together. So I'll just copy and paste that. This is just to demonstrate that it really does join together based on the string that it is called on. So what we're going to see is my name is Simon separated by occurrences of capital A, B, C. So go ahead and print that to the screen, and you see that we get this nonsense string of my ABC name, ABC is ABC Simon. Finally, the split method does the opposite of the join method. So it's called on a string value and returns a list of strings. So basically breaks apart strings based on the pattern that you feed it. By default, strings are split wherever whitespace characters, so the space, the tab, or the new line, are found. You can also pass what's called a delimiter string. So if you're familiar with the delimiter use in Excel, like a comma or a semicolon, in this case it could be anything you like, you can pass that delimiter string to the split method to specify a different split. So let's go ahead and take a look at this example. We're going to print the following. So the string my name is Simon, where each of those strings are separated with spaces. We're going to call the split method on it and include the space as a delimiter. So by default, actually let's test the default first. We'll just call split. And you'll see that we get a list as a result where each element is my name and is and Simon. So the space is the default. We'll get a similar result if we include the space as a delimiter. See, we get the same result. And then finally, if we do choose to use M as the delimiter, you'll see that we get a more interesting result. So again, the computer will always do what you tell it to do. It might not be what you want it to do, but we get this very interesting result of my name, E is Psi, and then on. So it's treating that M as the delimiter character. Finally, let's take a look at the following example. So we're going to ask the user to enter a phrase, and then we're going to count the number of occurrences of the letter T in their phrase and print the result. Now we're not going to interpret this literally. We're going to count the number of occurrences of T, whether it is upper or lowercase. Now there are several ways to do this, and I will show you one of these methods. So first, let's go ahead and set up a string where we get input from the user and ask them to enter a phrase. So phrase will now contain a string literal that will have indexes throughout. So we can actually, similar to how we work through a list, use a for loop to traverse every character in that phrase. So we're going to do that in the following way. For I in range, we're going to start at 0 and go to the length of the phrase. So we hit every character in the phrase. Just to test, let's go ahead and print the phrase at I so that we get every letter. We go ahead and run it, enter a phrase. Let's say hi there, and we get all of the characters in hi there. So we now know that we can traverse the entire string. At this point, what we're going to want to do is when we hit a particular index in the string, we want to check to see whether or not it is either an uppercase T or a lowercase t. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. We're going to say if phrase at I is equal to T. So we're going to actually add a counter here. We've done this before. So we're going to make a new variable, and I'm going to call it total T's and set that equal to 0 before the loop. If phrase at I is equal to T, we're going to increase the value of total T's by 1. So total T's equals total T's plus 1. And at the end, we will print the number of T's in the phrase. So let's take a look at how this works. Now, just as a test, I'm going to do 3 lowercase t's and 3 uppercase t's. You'll see that we get the result of 3. So this isn't exactly what we want. We want to manipulate this slightly so that it accounts for both upper and lowercase t's. Now we could do that by writing 2 separate parts of the if statement and using a Boolean operator, or we can use our newfound lower method to check both cases in one go. So essentially what we can do is we can make sure the entire phrase is lowercase in the following way. So if phrase at I dot lower is equal to T, then we count it. So adding this method onto phrase at I will first make sure that the character is lowercase. So if it is a lowercase t, that it will be counted. Let's go ahead and run that again. So I will use 3 lowercase and 3 uppercase t's, and you'll see that now it recognizes all 6 of them. Let's run it one more time and say, hi there, Tony. See what we get, and we do actually get 2 because we have a lowercase t and an uppercase t. I will post this example to Blackboard. If you have any questions about string manipulation or this example, please let me know.